Look, guys, I may have just finished one of the greatest games I have ever played, the conclusion to one of the most storied franchises in gaming history. And I would recommend you all play it, but unfortunately, most of you will never be able to. The year was 2008, and I was a stinky little child. We were 2 years into the PS3's time on shelves, and I do mean shelves. The reflective barbecue with Spider-Man font cost $500 and was not prom queen of the winter formal. That would be the Wii, actually. It had a real glow up since the whole purple box phase. And then the 360 was runner-up. In the beginning, studios found the PS3 hard to develop for, and often multi-platform games like Call of Duty or Elder Scrolls played a lot better on the Red Ring-oriented console. So at this point, the PS3 needed some system-selling exclusives to compete with Halo and Gears of War. One of those games would come in June of 2008, the narrative conclusion to a series that started in 1998 back on the PS1. Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots would be the crescendo, the final mission of Solid Snake. And whilst most review scores were overwhelmingly positive, it was a controversial title to say the least. Released 4 years after Metal Gear Solid 3, what many consider to be the greatest in the series and among the best games of all time, the based opinion of course is Metal Gear Solid 2, but that's a topic for another Lale-Lude though. Praised for its visuals, smooth detailed controls, but just as equally criticized for an over-reliance on cutscenes.
Jesus Christ, 7 hours?
Overstuffed plot and simplified gameplay compared to Snake Eater. Guns of the Patriots is either an overindulgent interactive movie or the most Metal Gear game there is. Something mostly agreed upon though is that the story is among the best, if very complicated. I believe it offers a near-perfect conclusion to the story of Solid Snake. Rarely have I seen any form of media do justice to its characters whilst remaining gut-wrenchingly bittersweet. Otacon, Sonny, Rose, even Campbell and Merrill. The game, I feel, mostly does justice to each of them. Oh, and we cannot forget turning the once reviled character Raiden into one of the illest things to ever run a 45-minute cutscene. Snake's ending is just as thoughtfully written as the character deserves. The game is essential to the story of Metal Gear and a landmark in video game history. Too bad you'll probably never get to play it. As I mentioned before, the game was only made available on PlayStation 3. No 360, no PC, no Wii. Shh, it's alright, it's okay, you have Wii Party. And unlike good old, no, that ain't for kids, this game hasn't been re-released or ported more times than the good book. In fact, the only way to not play this on a PS3 is via PS Now, or should I say, was.
Jesus!
This is stupid. I want to talk about vagina!
The now defunct service allowed users to stream games to PC, Vita, PlayStation TV, PS4, and later PS5 until it was discontinued or merged with PS Plus. MGS4 was removed in 2022 anyways, but even so, in order to stream the game in the first place, it required a stable internet connection, and even then, wouldn't be immune to a good dose of input lag. Even now, if you've still got a PS3, you'll likely have to track down a second-hand copy, as Sony gradually decimates the PlayStation 3 store. And this thing keeps making this noise, which quite frankly, I'm a little concerned. Alright, so this begs the question, why not re-release the game? It's been over a decade and a half, and Konami has no issue remaking or porting the others. If there's one Metal Gear game that needs a port, it's probably this one. Well, this $70 million project may unfortunately be an impossible port.
Is this some kind of sick joke?
There does, however, remain a lost copy of this game that could be the key to its salvation. But first, why is the game trapped on the PS3? There is one big issue that plagues a lot of the PS3's library, but before I get into that, MGS4 has some minor issues, one of which is the various licensing issues that may arise. The song Here's to You by Ennio Morricone and Joan Baez for the film Sacco and Vanzetti plays over the game's end credits.
Gorlami.
Whilst not essential, it provides the finale with a sense of poignant but content conclusion. Dare I say, enigmatic? A lot of big words there that I wrote down, and I'm proud of myself. Look, the song can be replaced, but with a Konami-sized budget, reobtaining the rights is not unreasonable. Or just cave and put Invisible by Duran Duran.
Invisibility cloak. I'm invisible.
Kojima, aside from loving to include uncomfortable and unnecessarily over-sexualized perv moments, which make me grapple with my overall enjoyment of these games, oh no, don't worry, it's actually not strange at all that this female character, who never speaks, wears a bikini into an active war zone. It's actually because she breathes through her skin. And yes, obviously the camera angle here was necessary for satire and commentary. So, ooh, sorry. Anyways, he loves product placement.
If you don't chew Big Red, then you.
Yes, where he thinks it may be a way to subvert audiences and challenge the very space of video games. Wait, sorry, is that a an iPod? Yes! Guns of the Patriots includes a lot of Apple products, including iPods, MacBooks, and iMacs. Whilst it's not impossible to regain the license, this isn't 2008 anymore. This is a post-Steve Jobs era, and Apple is a vastly different company from what it used to be.
And here it is.
The unwritten rule in Hollywood seems to be that Apple products are allowed to be used as long as they are being used by the good guys. Whilst I would find it hard to suggest that Snake, Otacon, Sonny, and the rest of the team are bad guys, it's more of a grey area. They are a non-government organisation. Whilst it's a noble fight in favour of peace, it's not a direct order from the White House saying, "Come on, Snake, get her done, yeah!" Yes, Campbell, my throat. Yes, Campbell is working for the United Nations, but again, the Operation Snake is sent on off the books. Another issue is the Playboy magazines. You'll collect many throughout the game that can either be used as items to distract enemies or for more personal use. Look, what you do in your free time on the war zone is up to you, Snake, but the whole grunting thing is not very tactical or espionage. Now, I don't know how this would go down with each individual model and what legal nightmare that poses, but the easiest option for both of these is just replace the textures. Find another brand or create a fictional one with another title. Peace Walker's re-release did the same thing, replacing brands like Doritos with fictional in-game ones. Of all these issues though, the biggest for Buns of the Patriots is its ties to the PS3 itself. Gyro controls, used honestly, maybe once or twice throughout the entire game, rely on the 6-axis motion controls within the DualShock. Now, this can be easily resolved by just mapping it to another input like the right stick or mouse controls. Also, if you're playing Metal Gear with a keyboard and mouse, you need to be put in a lab and studied, you freaky little specimen. Similar to before, a handful of Sony product placement will likely need removal, but removing all the references to the PlayStation 3 does come at a cost. Not a crucial voice line by any means, but certainly a memorable one comes in the return to Shadow Moses. After playing a very cool throwback to the start of MGS1, you make your way through a now abandoned facility that you helped destroy in the first game.
Hold it, Snake. Time to change the disc.
Otacon makes a fourth wall breaking comment about needing to swap to disc 2 before realizing that the Blu-ray discs of the PS3 hold enough data.
Wait, we're on PlayStation 3.
Ironically, this multi-disc issue is kind of a big reason for why MGS4 is locked to the PS3, but I will talk about that one later, trust me, because it's kind of funny.
Damn it, Otacon, get a grip.
Anyways, what may be a funny callback to most actually hits home a bit more than I first thought. Whilst it is a little fan servicey, the mission shows us where the Solid games started and how far the series, the industry, technology, and the PlayStation had come in that 10-year span. Like it or not, Metal Gear Solid 1 is one of the most revolutionary and influential games that has ever been released. It brought a cinematic quality to video games that had never really been seen before. Before The Last of Us, God of War, even Halo, there was Metal Gear. Removing this line would erase one of the best gags in the series and minorly damage the conclusion that Guns of the Patriots provides. Again, I must stress it isn't essential to the story at all, but to remove it would be doing an injustice to a series whose legacy is directly tied to the PlayStation, and exclusive in '98 and still in '08. Or you could just hire the voice actor again and change it for each platform. Have Otacon say some bullshit about the Steam and Xbox SSD. And, I don't know. This guy peed himself in the first game. It's really not that big of a deal.
And the clap of my ass cheeks keeps alerting the guards.
Now, I am no expert on the PS3, or Peace Expert as it's known, but the PlayStation 3 was notoriously hard to develop for. The console, when optimized, could be a true powerhouse, better than the 360. But this was rarely the case, especially in the early days, with multi-platform games, as the console's architecture was drastically more unique than the competition. The PS3 and its cell processor was unlike a traditional CPU. Devs had access to one main cell PPE, which essentially told the 7 SPEs what to do in-game. Each one could be used to individually handle stuff like graphics, audio, game physics, and so on. Look, honestly, the best way I saw it described was it's like pulling a carriage with one large horse versus one with a pretty large horse and several small hamsters. It's definitely more powerful and efficient, but it's much harder to build a carriage to make that work. Anyways, what does this nerd rhetoric even mean? Penis? Well, a game like Metal Gear Solid 4, which utilizes this multi-mini core setup, delivers a mostly well-optimized experience. But because of that, the code is uniquely tailored to the PS3, and a more typical console setup wouldn't be able to use it. That's why porting this game is a nightmare, and because of its exclusivity, the PS3 version is the only one ever made, and its code forever tied to the web of architecture that is the cell processor. Hey, maybe that's why it has the Spider-Man font. But there is hope.
Think again.
Look, a port is possible. Naughty Dog were able to bring the Uncharted series and The Last of Us to PS4. They look and run better, but this was no easy task. The studio have detailed the numerous hurdles they endured during this translation.
The Naughty Dog will endure.
Now, a slightly more grey area, as per usual, is the emulation route. Metal Gear Solid 4 for a long time has been the Achilles heel of PS3 emulation, but recent advancements have made it a, honestly, sometimes better experience. It can now be upscaled beyond 720p and upgrade the frame rate from around 30 FPS to a semi-consistent 60. Look, I've seen a Steam Deck be able to handle certain segments of this game, so a PS5 is more than capable of outputting better performance. Yet, it's still not perfect. Crashes, missing models, texture and lighting issues may still arise, but I wouldn't know that. The gameplay you're seeing isn't 60 frames at all. You will continue to watch and ask no questions. With a talented Konami team though, faithful emulation is certainly possible. But with the time, money and resources it may take for both of these options, there's an argument that at that point, maybe just fully commit to a remake. And this may be the route that Konami goes. MGS Delta, the Snake Eater remake, if successful, may encourage Konami to oh, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? But MGS Delta is not a cheap game to make, and with the size of MGS4, a remake of that to the same standard would certainly be a financial commitment to a game that a lot of people seem to be split on. But there is one other option, the one you guys have been waiting for. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Throughout the time leading up to the 2008 release, Kojima repeated an Xbox version wouldn't be coming, as the game was designed for and could only be handled by the PS3. On the contrary, whilst Sony allegedly pushed for the game to be a graphical showcase, there was never an official exclusivity deal. Microsoft were apparently desperate to get the game on Xbox. The rumor went that Konami put together a team to get the game running on the 360. In 2023, the game's assistant producer, Ryan Payton, added some legitimacy, saying an Xbox version was being developed. In fact, he went as far as to say it was running beautifully and smoothly on the Xbox 360. But due to some poor decision-making at Microsoft, Konami were essentially forced to axe this version of the game. The format wars of the early 2000s pitted DVD against Blu-ray. Microsoft still believed in DVD and were the ones that stuck by the Evolution HD DVD, but Sony were key in developing the up-and-coming Blu-ray. The extremely high price point of the PS3 was due in large part to the inclusion of a Blu-ray drive. Where these things would be running you upwards of $1,000, Sony included it for $500 in their new console.
You don't just get a sweet gaming machine. It's like you get the best Blu-ray player around built in for free.
Whereas Microsoft stuck with a DVD drive in the 360. Blu-ray. As many of you might know, Blu-ray were quickly the victors of this battle, due in large part to the bigger storage capacity offered by the discs. A dual-layered Blu-ray disc could store up to 50 gigabytes, enough to fit the required amount for MGS4. How much space was on a 360 DVD? About 8.3 gigabytes.
What is this?
Meaning MGS4 would require over 6 bill-gaped discs on the Xbox. Konami decided this was not worth the cost, hassle, or time dedicated to a console with a less than thriving Japanese player base. Apparently, they were even concerned that they would become a laughingstock for including 6 discs in one case. With that, the 360 port was cancelled.
Well, this sucks.
But the code was still made. Wherever it is, it could be key to getting MGS4 running on modern hardware. Unlike the PS3, the 360 has a much more standard assembly, and we've seen emulation can be extremely polished with official support from Microsoft. But just how much was completed is the question. It could be an entire port, but it also might only be a couple of acts. Sadly though, we will likely never know.
Through the night, what a thrill.
The Metal Gear series is available on almost everything with a screen. It's an unfortunate injustice that the series finale is only available on a near 20-year-old console. You may hate it, love it, tolerate it, or somewhere in between, but there is no denying its place as the series' capstone. If you want to experience the complete story of Metal Gear Solid, then you need to play this game. New fans shouldn't have to buy a PS3, and old ones shouldn't have to keep theirs plugged in. Also, I don't think Ratchet & Clank should be making my console sound like this.